History Department in 1983. In 1986, she became the coordinator of the Canadian Studies program and was named the chair of the Political and Canadian Studies Department 6 years ago. Della states that her philosophy of teaching encompasses three main objectives: to help students find a balance between their private and academic lives, to inspire students to explore their own potential and to give them a positive sense of their own self-worth, and to encourage students to appreciate that what they are learning in university is simply preparation for life in the real world. She says, and I quote, "I truly love teaching. I am awed by the magnitude of the responsibility of teaching, yet I cannot imagine doing anything else. My sincere hope is that the students benefit from their contact with me as much as I do from my time with them." End quote. Based on the reactions of her students, this approach seems to be working. 17 students signed her nomination form for this award. I would like to take a moment to share with you a few of the comments made by some of Della's students. And I quote, "She has a way of bringing Canada alive. Students who have completed her courses definitely take with them a greater appreciation of our country's history and a great desire to help shape its future. Looking at Mount St. Vincent's mission statement and strategic plan, it is clear that Dr. Stanley deserves this award not only from a student's perspective, but also based on the values and beliefs this university is committed to. In recognition of her award, Dr. Stanley receives a framed certificate, and a gift will be made in her name to the university fund of her choice. She has chosen to direct her gift to the Mount's capital campaign, Building Tomorrow Together, in support of the Scholarship Fund. Congratulations to Dr. Stanley, to the students, and to the Mount community. We are extremely fortunate to have such an outstanding professor contribute to Mount St. Vincent's mission of excellence, innovation, and discovery.
Madam Chancellor, Madam President, honored guests, faculty, graduates, and friends. The 2003 Award for Research Excellence is presented today to Dr. Ron Van Houten. Dr. Van Houten joined Mount St. Vincent University in 1971 and is currently a professor in the Department of Psychology. His research has led to 5 published books, 2 edited ones, 12 book chapters, and 96 articles in peer-reviewed journals. Although first active in educational research and then in clinical research, in the 1980s, Dr. Van Houten turned his attention to the area of pedestrian safety and has developed an international reputation for his work. In 2000, he was the recipient of the Institute of Transportation Engineers Innovative Solutions for Urban Transportation Award for the use of animation in LED pedestrian signals to improve pedestrian safety. Those of you who have crossed the streets of Roby and Jubilee will be familiar with the unique pedestrian crossing signals at that corner, which are the product of Dr. Van Houten's research. During his tenure at the Mount, Dr. Van Houten has been regularly funded by external agencies. He received his first grant from NSERC in 1973 and has received subsequent grants from the Canada Council and Social Science Humanities Research Council of Canada. As he began his traffic safety research, his funding base expanded with grants from Transport Canada, the Province of Nova Scotia, Imperial Oil, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, Florida Department of Transportation, and the U.S. National Academy of Sciences, Dr. Van Houten's research has garnered well over $1 million Canadian, quite respectable for an individual researcher. In addition to his specific research contributions, Dr. Van Houten has served the broader research community in a variety of capacities. He is currently a director with the Society for the Experimental Analysis of Behavior. In addition, he has served as the associate editor for the Education and Treatment of Children and the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis. He has also served on the editorial boards of the Journal of the Experimental Analysis of Behavior, the Journal of Behavior Education, and the Journal of Behavioral Research of Severe Developmental Disabilities. For his excellence in scholarship, sustained for over 3 years, and for his outstanding contributions in the area of pedestrian safety, Dr. Van Houten is awarded this year's Award for Research Excellence. Congratulations, Ron.
Madam Chancellor, Madam Vice Chancellor, distinguished guests, faculty, graduates, family, and friends. It is my honor and privilege to present to you Margaret Wade LeBarge for the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa. Like our other honorees today, Margaret Wade LeBarge is an exemplary woman. Her contributions have been multidimensional and sustained through a long lifetime. She is a woman who has worked in ways clearly visible in the world and in the less dramatic but equally important invisible contributions made by women to families and communities from, as she herself has documented, the Middle Ages and probably before, to the present. She has labored most of her life as a private scholar, yet she has received public recognition and honor for her work. She has provided a home and support for her husband in his busy career and community activities. His work set family priorities, as did the needs of their children. And she has left this nation richer for the contributions of her family as well as her own contributions. Her own work encompasses all the dimensions assigned to faculty work at universities like the Mount and elsewhere: teaching, scholarship, and service. While she was a dedicated and committed teacher, it is particularly for her scholarship and service that we recognize her today. She is a scholar of the Middle Ages who writes for both scholars and students. Her work helps us understand the powerful figures of the time and the management of everyday events. From her books, we can learn about important political figures as well as their wives, about peasant women and nuns, about the food they ate and what they drank and how they dressed and what their homes were like, and about the interaction of different religious groups and social classes. Her books about medieval life tell us about the things we know about our own lives in our society and help us appreciate the common humanity of our predecessors. Women are at the center of the lives she describes. Dr. LeBarge understands how vital women's work is to daily life, whether her own or the manners of the 13th century. Her books reflect meticulous scholarship and a skill in writing that I and my colleagues would do well to imitate. Margaret Wade was born in New York City to a comfortable and cultured family. She was the only girl among 4 children, but was always encouraged to pursue scholarly pursuits. At Radcliffe, the Women's College of Harvard University, she studied medieval history and literature. For her, neither could be understood without the other, and the political and intellectual context was an important dimension in understanding the time. Following completion of her bachelor's degree, she went to Oxford University in England for further studies. Probably at the request of her family, remember, she was only 23 at the time, she left England in 1939 as war became imminent. In addition to her research and familiarity with medieval scholarship at Oxford, it was also where she met the man who changed the direction of her life, Canadian Raymond LeBarge. While, as she describes it, there were lots of young men at Oxford at the time, Raymond was the one she liked best. She married him in 1940 and made Canada her home. Her husband was in the Navy during the war and eventually posted to Naval Intelligence in Ottawa, where she and Raymond were to live for the rest of their lives. They had 4 children born between 1945 and 1950. Those were busy years for the family. But she was also a scholar and was determined to sustain that portion of her life. She fitted in where she could. And, as she pointed out last night, children grow and housework can be done in the afternoons. Mornings were for her work. She became involved in teaching part-time at the 2 universities located in Ottawa. If completing a PhD or taking a full-time faculty job did not appear possible for the busy young wife and mother, she did not abandon her scholarly interests. Her university positions kept her in touch with research and reinforced her commitment to scholarship and publication. But it wasn't so easy at the time she was doing this. There was no well-trod path to follow. She was creating a model. Research on the experience of women faculty in universities during the 1940s, 50s, and 60s does not suggest it was an easy place. Women faculty were often isolated, faced derision and discrimination, and lived on the margins. But Margaret continued her scholarship. Margaret Wade LeBarge's first book began with the subject of her Oxford research, Simon de Montfort, the Earl of Leicester, an important figure in England in the 13th century. He spent his early years in France, and in her research, she became aware of the complexity of Anglo-French relations at the time, a theme which echoed in her later work. She shaped her research to accommodate the realities of her life. Extended European archival sojourns were not possible, so she relied on primary and secondary sources which were available and pursued her work through an exhaustive and careful examination of this material. Her first book on Simon de Montfort was published in 1962 in England, Canada, and the United States, and was well received by reviewers in all 3 countries. It was followed by 9 others in the next 2.5 decades, and many of them dealt with issues around the lives of women, households, and families. Her work has been well received by audiences and reviewers, and when noticed by mainstream scholarly journals, widely praised. Her books have been printed and reprinted, and she tells me there are some coming out in reissue in the next little while. Reviews published in sources like the Women's Review of Books gave her exposure to wider audiences. Her work also reached a wider audience when she prepared a background study on the history of women for the Royal Commission on the Status of Women in 1971. In addition to the books she has written, Margaret Wade LeBarge has also written chapters in books, articles published in a variety of periodicals. She has given guest lectures for scholarly organizations, community groups, and has been invited to a number of different universities as a guest lecturer. Margaret Wade LeBarge's community contribution is no less impressive than her scholarly work. Among those boards and organizations she has served are St. Vincent's Hospital in Ottawa, the Rehabilitation Institute of Ottawa, Regional Hospital Planning Council, the Ottawa-Carleton Regional District Health Council, the Canadian Nurses Association, the Catholic Health Association of Ontario, the Board of Governors of Carleton University, and the Council on Aging of Ottawa-Carleton. She has served as a member, a director, and as chair in these various organizations. Her service work reflects a strong commitment to the institutions of her community, which contribute to the quality of life of its citizens, particularly its older citizens. Margaret Wade LeBarge's scholarly contributions were recognized when she was elected to the Royal Society of Canada and by the other, by the other honorary degrees she has received. Her service and scholarship were recognized by her appointment to the Order of Canada. It is particularly fitting that we honor her here at the Mount because of the totality and combination of her work in the workplace, in the family, and in the community. In keeping with our tradition of honoring women who have made significant contributions while living complex and multifaceted lives, I ask you, Madam Chancellor, in the name of the Senate of Mount St. Vincent University, to confer on Margaret Wade LeBarge the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.
On behalf of the Senate of Mount St. Vincent University, I confer on you, Margaret Wade LeBarge, the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges that pertain thereto. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
It's coming, it's coming.
Basketball?
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Madam Chancellor, distinguished guests, faculty, graduates, families, and friends, it is my honor and great pleasure to present to you Pamela Wallin for the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa. I quote, "Success is not about finding the holy grail of fame and fortune. It's about becoming a successful human being, end of quote. These very words are those of Pamela Wallin, broadcaster, journalist, entrepreneur, television host, author, and now Canada's Consul General to New York City. These words exude values of integrity, equity, excellence, and stewardship, values that she has demonstrated in both her professional and personal life, and values of significance to the Mount community. Raised in a small prairie town in Saskatchewan, Pamela Wallin went on to the University of Regina, where she completed an honors degree in psychology and political science. In addition to pursuing academic excellence, these years were formative in terms of her interest in social justice and women's issues. She was part of a group of young women who opened the University Women's Center for Students and organized a number of campus lectures that profiled influential women of the time. She and others also received funding to take their University Women's Health Center into the community, where she worked firsthand in public education on women's health. It was during this time, when she was honing her public speaking skills through presentations in the community and cultivating her feminist spirit, that she made guest appearances on a local radio phone-in show when the topic was about women's issues. Ms. Wallin was smitten, you might say, by the thought of being able to effect social change through this medium, because up until this point, she fully intended to save the world, one person at a time, through the social work system. After a short stint as a social worker at the Prince Albert Penitentiary in Saskatchewan, she was presented with an opportunity to host the phone-in segment of the Radio Noon show on CBC Radio in Regina. She took it, and so began her media career. The next decades involved working in all media, radio, print, and television. These included the morning show at CBO, As It Happens, Question Period, Ottawa Bureau of the Toronto Star, Canada AM, CTV National News, and Primetime News. She has worked on both sides of the mic, covering regional, national, and international events. Such assignments have included wars, elections, economic summits, royal visits, and the annual year-end interview with the Prime Minister of Canada. Pamela Wallin's tenacity, strong communication skills, and conviction for journalism excellence helped make significant inroads in a largely male-dominated field. Her accomplishments were recognized in 1985 when she became the first woman in Canadian network television history to be appointed Ottawa Bureau Chief. After years of working for others, in 1995, she founded an independent production company. Here, Ms. Wallin put her values into practice by hiring almost exclusively women and went on to host and produce numerous programs for Canadian television, including Pamela Wallin's Talk TV. Her own talk show afforded her the opportunity and privilege to interview on her own terms many well-known authors, actors, and thinkers. In 2001, Ms. Wallin published her second book, entitled Speaking of Success, Collected Wisdom, Insights, and Reflections, a collection of the perspectives of the many celebrated and successful people who have helped shape and inform her worldview. Pamela Wallin has served on the boards of numerous professional, educational, and charitable organizations. She is the recipient of many honors and distinctions for her professional and community work. These include 6 honorary degrees, Canadian Women in Communications Woman of the Year, Canadian Association of Broadcasters Lifetime Achievement Award. She has been inducted into the Canadian Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame. In addition, she has received Her Majesty's Queen Elizabeth Golden Jubilee Medal, and in her younger days, Her Majesty's Outstanding Canadian Achiever Award. In 1999, Pamela Wallin was the first recipient of the United Nations UNIFEM Canada Award for her outstanding contributions towards the advancement of women, and she also was awarded the Saskatchewan Order of Merit. And there are many other notable distinctions and awards. But perhaps her most treasured recognition was when she was honored by the residents of her hometown of Wadena, when they renamed a main street, not just a back road, but a main street, Pamela Wallin Drive. While her career has taken her far from her small-town roots, she would quickly remind us of the importance of family and community. At times during her career, she has not only reported on the news, but she herself has been the news. In spite of the professional and personal challenges she has faced and the fame and glamour that she has enjoyed, Ms. Wallin has remained strongly grounded in her small-town values. She draws strength and support from family and friends and feels that she is the recipient when giving. Today, Pamela Wallin is Canada's representative to New York City, our largest cultural and trading partner. Her strong leadership and communication skills are invaluable to her as Consul General. In addition to this prestigious role, she is in great demand as a keynote speaker on politics and the media. We honor Pamela Wallin today because of her distinguished career, her conviction for excellence and integrity, her giving spirit and sense of community, and her positive presence as a national and international female public figure. In summary, her success as a successful human being. I ask you, Madam Chancellor, in the name of the Senate of Mount St. Vincent University, to confer Pamela Wallin the degree Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.
So, on behalf of the Senate of Mount St. Vincent University, I admit you, Pamela Wallin, to the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges that pertain thereto. Congratulations. Thank you very much. She did it. Congratulations and thank you.
It's very dangerous to give a former journalist a microphone on the mount, as they say. We have the habit of sharing our opinions. You're a little luckier today because I've become a diplomat, and so I'm no longer allowed to. This is an incredible honor. I want to thank the Chancellor, the President, the members of the university community, the parents who are here, the special guests, my fellow honorary degree recipients, Laura and Cora this morning, and Margaret this afternoon. I am humbled to be counted among them. But I'm here to talk today to the Mount St. Vincent graduating class of 2003. For you, today will forever remain etched on your mind. You'll remember what you wore. You'll remember who you sat next to. Years from now, imagine this, you'll be listening to an oldie station, and you'll hear a song, and it will remind you of these past incredible few years. It will spark a feeling or a memory, perhaps about a true love or a broken heart, about a professor's wise words, or that moment when you actually changed your mind about a belief that you once so passionately held. Maybe you'll think back and remember the dream you had, your plans, and you'll be able to check that against how much you have accomplished and what you have become. You know the famous words of Beatle John Lennon, "Life is what happens once you've made plans." You'll look back and you'll wonder how you got there, wherever you'll be then from here today. You are about to discover the wonderful burden of choice, and that the decisions you make will matter, not just to you. For the last few years as a student, you have been an observer, learning the theories of politics or economics, the meaning of a literary work, or the importance of a scientific truth or a mathematical law. As you graduate, you become a true participant and citizen, and with that comes responsibility. For every action, there is a consequence, good or bad, helpful or hurtful. Your education will be a tool to help you understand the choices you will have to make, but your compassion, your concern, your instinct, and your intuition may prove more valuable. Because learning is not about knowing for knowing's sake. It's about knowing so that we can make a difference in the world. What's important is understanding why things happen, learning from it, reacting to it. That is what makes us a caring citizen, the participant, not just the bystander. And you can choose to live and create in a world inhabited by doers and thinkers, those who pursue ideas and work, not just paychecks and security. This can be risky, but embarking on risky ventures is about courage and confidence. It's not about ego. It takes hard work from you and understanding and guidance from those around you, and both you and they have to be willing. You see, in many ways, the key to success in life is the expectation of it. What you expect of yourself, what others expect of you. Your families, your teachers, help set the bar, but only you can rise to it. We are all a product of the people and the place we call home. Family and community shape our attitudes and craft our value systems. Families are our first mentors. So as you weave together these threads of the knowledge and the education and the experience you will have, this becomes the guide wire to keep you on course. From family and from community, there is a clear sense of the importance of keeping attuned to one's own moral compass. It's the only way you can have, in the tough times, the courage of your own convictions. My parents taught me perhaps the most important lesson that I ever learned in life. Character trumps genius. What lies within us is more important. What we do is one thing. Who we are is at the core. Wisdom, it is said, is about knowing what to do next. But in life, you see, kindness actually may be more important than wisdom. And recognizing that is when you start to get smart. Most of the successful people I have met are very wise in that sense. They are passionate about their mission in life. They have a strong sense of purpose. They do want their acts and their actions to matter and to count. Charles Dickens wrote that what is meant of knowledge of the world is simply this: an acquaintance with the infirmities of man. In other words, to be truly knowledgeable, we must recognize human frailty. I think that's how I always saw my work as a journalist, the art of telling stories of the human condition. But it's in fact at the core of all of the work that all of us do. Regardless of what we choose to do in life, it is about our relationships with people. Or in the words of the late Canadian novelist Margaret Lawrence, always try to feel in your heart's core the reality of others. Success is not about the pursuit of fame and fortune. We each must discover our own measure and definition of it and the ways to make it real. I know I'm considered a successful person in part because I've spent so many years on television, and our culture often sees celebrity and success as interchangeable. But for me, I have come to measure my success in terms of an ability to adapt and change, and when necessary, reinvent myself. Experience has taught me it's worth the risk. The effort is always worth it. But without friends and family, it would not have been possible. I've got a strong and supportive family who instilled key values. My friends today, some of whom date back to childhood, are intelligent, eclectic, caring, and honorable. All have given me great and good guidance in life, so in the end, I have come to measure my success by the company I keep. So look around the room at your friends and your family and judge your success so far. The successful also know their limits, and let me explain. In the great words of the British writer G.K. Chesterton, and I'm paraphrasing here, the most important part of any painting is its frame. In other words, the essence of art is limitation. The frame tells us which side is up. It gives us some perspective, and it helps us focus. The point is that we need to recognize that there are boundaries to what we can do in life. That's not to suggest it's about backing away from challenges, but it is about putting your time and your energy into what matters most, and into efforts where you can make a difference. A few years ago, in a batch of mail that I got regularly from viewers at the television program, I received a letter from the late Canadian poet Al Purdy. I invited him subsequently to be a guest on the program, and we were in conversation, talking about how he had survived his life as a poet in this country. Money and respect are pretty hard to come by in his chosen field. But Purdy said he had coped because of his own personal mantra, which was, he said, to stay stupid. He said it was a phrase he'd borrowed from an Australian poet. I protested that he was obviously not a stupid man, but he said, no, staying stupid simply means keep your mind open. In other words, you've got to stay stupid to become smart. I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said that education is not given for the purpose of earning a living. It's learning what to do with the living after you've earned it. And you've got to keep your mind open to know what path to take. So the rules are simple ones. Keep your mind open. Stay stupid. Find your passion. Be a giver and not a taker. The reward is always worth it. If you want to leave your mark on the landscape, then you will have to take risks and reinvent the rules from time to time. That will no doubt bring down some criticism on your head. Live with it. Despite the critics, you should be impatient with mediocrity. You should strive for perfection, and you should expect it from those around you. But always check with both your head and your heart before you act. It seems fitting that I would leave the final word today to a journalist, because that world and the people in it have been a profound influence on me. Sidney Harris was a great American writer, no longer with us, and his advice was very simple. And there's not a day goes by that I don't say it to myself quietly inside my own head. Regret for the things that we do can be tempered by time. It is regret for the things that we do not do that is inconsolable. Embrace life, take risks, find your passion, think with your heart, act with your head. And as someone said today, be frequently provocative. Good luck and congratulations.
On behalf of the graduating class of 2003 and the Mount St. Vincent University community, I would like to thank Margaret Wade LeBarge and Pamela Wallin for their presence here today. We're honored by your attendance. I would particularly like to thank Pamela Wallin for her words of wisdom. You've given us words to strive for.
Graduates and their families and guests are invited to a reception in the multi-purpose room, Rosaria Center, as soon as the convocation ceremonies are concluded. I now declare this convocation closed.